word gets out that, hey, you get there, you get free welfare, everything is taken care of, you become a new political ward of the state as long as you vote for whatever the globalists want. This is the takedown plan. Geopolitically, internationally, today, the top story is this. Reuters, U.S. allies to stage exercises in West Ukraine as battles rage in the east. This is exactly what all the experts have said would start to happen, is what I've said. 6 months ago, the Ukrainians vote to not join the EU and be sucked dry by that tyranny. Soros activates neo-Nazi paramilitary groups that overthrow the government, the elected government, which certainly wasn't perfect. I'm not saying that, but it was elected. No one disputed it was freely elected. They overthrow it, run all the way into the Russian pipelines, refineries, and oil fields that have been owned, leased, and run by Russia for 100 years. Russia's been there for 500, basically. And they try to take the Russian port, their only Black Sea port, and other strategic areas. Russia sends in forces to protect them for their interest. The issue is the West initiated this, just like they initiated ISIS, which is really Al-Qaeda in Iraq, that went into Syria. Just like our government backs the Muslim Brotherhood. Just like they backed the jihadis taking down Gaddafi. Just like they're backing Al-Qaeda's been attacking Jordan. And Soros came out and admitted responsibility in the New York Times for the coup and mass murder in Ukraine. And so as things escalate, notice you heard yesterday, NATO is going to send a rapid reaction force in the next few months in case Russia invades. NATO is already in Ukraine, already in Poland, already has advisors. It's come out. There's already mercenaries. A lot of people that don't want war with Russia are trying to de-escalate it, saying, oh, Russia doesn't really have troops in eastern Ukraine. Yes, they do. And there's battles going on, a proxy war directly with Russia right now. It's not like we're having a proxy war with Russia through Vietnam or a proxy war with Russia in Angola or Rhodesia. The United States of America and NATO is now in a proxy war directly with mercenaries and CIA advisors with Russian troops. There's a steady stream of body bags going back to Russia of Russian troops and funerals all over the country. I've gone and checked. And yes, ladies and gentlemen, there are dead mercs and others coming back here. So I'm going to explain this again. From all the intel we have, the United States, run by George Soros and others, a known Nazi collaborator, this is like a Twilight Zone episode, has gone in, overthrown Ukraine, run over Russian interests. The Russians have inserted troops. The CIA director was over there running it. Senator Mendez has been over there running it. It's on. And if they start running airstrikes, NATO does, as they've said they will, against Russians, then Russia will start responding, shooting down those aircraft, and then it escalates to the point of where General Jackson was during the Kosovo War, when the Russians controlled that airfield that they've controlled since the end of World War II in Pristina, and they ordered NATO to attack the Russians on the airfield, and the head of NATO overruled the U.S. NATO commanders, the British head, and said, I will not start World War III. We literally, people just think we can't have a war with Russia. People just think we're not going to have a nuclear war. People just expect everything's going to go on forever like it's always. This is what's going to end up destroying our society, ladies and gentlemen. This is what's going to end up really causing a problem. U.S. allies to stage exercises in West Ukraine as battle rages in the east. Reuters, we'll come back and tell you about that. Russia's strategic nuclear forces to hold major exercise this month. Reuters. NATO weighs rapid reaction response from Eastern Europe. It's already going on. Putin orders building hastened at new Russian spaceport. It's all coming up. Well, General McHenry has come out and said, we helped build ISIS.
Try to kill it.
Weapons from Benghazi ended up in the hands of Islamic State radicals. We told you several years ago that was coming. And oh, gee, Al-Qaeda, now named ISIS, now named IS to confuse the public, why they're going to attack America now, why the attack is imminent in Texas or on the Texas border. The Department of Homeland Security says by or on September 11th. We've got our reporters down there on the ground. Why is that border wide open? That clip is coming up. But back to the top story geopolitically. U.S. allies to stage exercise in West Ukraine as battles rage in the east, as fighting between the army and Russian-backed rebels rage in eastern Ukraine. Preparations are underway near the western border for a joint military exercise this month with more than 1,000 troops from the United States and its allies. The decision to go ahead with the rapid Trident exercise, September 16th to 26th, is seen as a sign of the commitment in NATO states to support non-NATO member Ukraine while stopping well short of military intervention in the conflict. The annual exercise to take place, a training center near Ukraine's border with Poland, was initially scheduled for July, but was put back because early planning was disrupted by the crisis in the eastern part of the country. Continuing here with what's unfolding in Russia, Russia is now to conduct drills with their nuclear forces. Russia's strategic nuclear forces to hold major exercise this month. The forces responsible for Russia's strategic nuclear arsenal will conduct major exercises this month involving more than 4,000 soldiers, the defense ministry said today in a latest sign of rising tension with NATO over the Ukraine crisis. In an announcement a day before the start of the NATO summit in Wales, RIA News agency quoted the ministry as saying the exercise would take place in Altia in south-central Russia and would also include around 400 technical units and extensive use of air power. The head of their strategic rocket forces is saying troops would practice countering irregular units and high-precision weapons and conducting combat missions in conditions of active radio, electronic jamming, and intensive enemy actions in areas of troop deployment, or close quarter, medium range, and short range strategic nuke war. That's basically what they're preparing for. He said enemy forces would be represented in the exercise by Russian Special Forces units. Supersonic MiG-31 fighter interceptors and Su-24MR reconnaissance aircraft would take part, saying the scale of the power involved was unprecedented for exercises of this type. Both Russia and NATO have stepped up military maneuvers since the outbreak of the conflict in Ukraine between government forces and pro-Russian separatists in the east of the former Soviet Republic. A Kremlin secretary advisor said Tuesday that Russia would update its military doctrine this year in light of the Ukraine crisis and sharp deterioration of relations with NATO. A new Cold War. And I'm going to say it again. I don't lionize. I don't romanticize. I don't deify any of the Russians. But the Russians are not teaching our kids 2 + 2 = 5 and saying if we have businesses, we didn't build them. Or that raising the debt limit doesn't raise the debt. They're not funding Al-Qaeda all over the world. They're fighting them. They're promoting Christian values now in Russia compared to us. Family values. And that's why the West, run by a bunch of mental patients, it's not even America. It's the criminal nutballs that have control of our society, the military-industrial complex, and the big banks that wanted to suck Ukraine and a bunch of other former Soviet satellites dry. So they're replacing the old Soviet tyranny 20-something years ago with a new globalist tyranny. The EU operates, ladies and gentlemen, just like the old Soviet Union does. We've had members of the EU Parliament on, like Nigel Farage many times, the head of UKIP. The head of the outgoing president of the Czech Republic said it's the new Soviet Union. So it's that America is becoming super corrupt. The EU is ultra corrupt. And it's starting a fight with Russia. and just pushing, it's very dangerous. We're going to open the phones up when we come back, give the number, and I'll get your take on this and more. I had confirmed this before with Venezuelan listeners and friends, but Reuters reports that they now pray in public school to Chavez.
We're on the march. The empire's on the run.
State is not God.
Alex Jones and the GCN Radio Network.